Yeah, yeah, that's pretty good. Oh, I'm recording all the time. Fuck. Hi, hello everybody. Good morning. It's lovely to see you back here. January has also been a month, and there's some more stuff I'd like to talk about. So let's get into it. Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. A good two-season mystery arc slowly unraveled over standard procedural episodes that makes the beloved franchise feel fresher and more emotionally mature than it's ever been. Despite sometimes lulling you into a false sense of logical security, it quickly reminds you it's still a cartoon, and an immersive and entertaining one at that. I would also just like to briefly note that the ending is one of the most morbid and dark endings of any TV show I've ever seen, if you really think about it. I'm also very impressed by the disparity of taking itself as a parody and also being like emotionally mature and I don't want to say vulgar, but it made fun of a lot of different groups of people that perhaps in today's world we would be like, oh, that's derogatory. But it was derogatory towards everybody, so it gets away with it quite nicely. Sometimes you're gonna get to use your logical brain to watch this show, but most of the time it's just gonna be it's Scooby Doo. It's gonna be goofy. It's a cartoon. Yeah, yeah. I'm giving this a bronze ribbon and 74 out of 100. You don't necessarily need to watch this, but I had a good time watching it, especially being that I first watched it when I was a kid. So it was a good kind of nostalgic trip. Yeah. Dune Messiah. It's quite rare for anything that promises and teases climaxes of galactic and historic consequences to actually deliver. But Messiah delivers a calculated, immersive, unrelentingly tense, and unfathomably wise narrative that never budges under its own self aware prophecies, dense conspiracies, and societal conclusions. Dune was already meticulous and poignant in its nuanced depictions of grand scale movements in the human civilization, but Messiah puts the theory into practice. This was a very tense read. It's on the edge of being better than Dune. I cannot quite decide. It definitely was more calculated, was more focused. It brought all the setups into a sharp point of tension, and it delivered beyond all of my expectations. I'm giving this a gold ribbon and 97 out of 100. If you're going to read Dune, give yourself some time to read another bit of this. I highly recommend this. Group therapy. I was mature for my age, but I was still a child. Really diverse, both genre wise and in intensity, derivative in the best way possible, and featuring smooth production, performances, and hooks. While it might sometimes seem a bit flexy, it tackles enough emotionally authentic subjects for it to be deeply relatable. There's a certain virality to this record. It's very exciting, it feels fresh and energetic. It takes its influences very clearly and very respectfully. I think it builds upon its influences and it doesn't just rip them off. I'm giving this a silver ribbon and 89 out of 100. This is my most exciting listen of 2023, and I hope you enjoy it too. Maestro. While its fast paced screenplay and editing sometimes trips the line of incoherence, its mastery of the frame, performance, and emotion is undeniable. I think I get the critiques of the characters not being exposed or explained or worked through in the first half. There was something lacking to it. Motive or at least exposition to understand his self a bit more. I think it's a bit all over the place, not just in the beginning, but throughout the whole film. But their relationships and Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan's performances are so immersive, are so believable, subtle, unsubtle as well. There's so much passion driven by both of these characters into their roles that are just stunning to look at. The climax in this film, that long shot, it really made me emotionally fragile for a bit. Bradley Cooper really knows how to work the camera, so the camera also works you to some extent, and it ultimately overcomes its lackluster structure that might otherwise have crumbled the movie. I'm giving this an 83 out of 100 and a silver ribbon. Out of the biopics I've seen, this is definitely up there. Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Extended Edition. I feel like I need to note that this was the extended edition. While its grandiosity is impressive and entertaining, the brief magical glimpses of its convoluted world building falter under random and obscure lore mentions, and its action is hazed by rapid, spastic editing, with a few outstanding moments of character drama and mythological tension. The film's focus is largely misplaced on a wider world of vistas hidden behind a screenplay centered around a band of underexposed characters built on an implied yet still mostly unexplored depth. It tries to do it all at once and thins itself for it, but there's an undeniable allure to it. So I know I'm sacrilegious for not having watched all of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but I have just never been a fantasy kid. As you can see, it's mostly sci-fi. It's mostly sci-fi. But there is an allure that just pulls you into the magical world that Tolkien and Peter Jackson have built. So I really enjoyed my time watching it, although the extended edition that I watched was super long. However, after researching a bit on what the extended scenes were, I found that most of the extended scenes were what made me want to watch the movie. So I don't know how I would have felt if I hadn't watched the extended edition, but I think the world and the world building of Lord of the Rings is most rewarding to people who have already done a great deal of research into it. So me as a layperson did not enjoy it to the fullest as I maybe were intended to do. Also, I have not watched the sequels, so I do not know yet. I have not watched the sequels yet, so I do not know how much these characters are developed later on in the trilogy. But for now, I'm giving this a 76 out of 100 and a silver ribbon. So, yeah. The Hold Steady, Boys and Girls in America. It's fairly consistent, but there's a feeling of generational dissonance to most of the material. Plus, the lyrics and vocal delivery are often uber cringe. So this was another recommendation, or at least a mention by Northern Lion, and so I decided to give his recommendations another shot. And this time he was not right. This does not hold up to aging. I think this is definitely a very 2000s Sign of the Times album. And the themes that it tackles are definitely not talked about in that way today. I did really enjoy some of the songs, such as Southtown Girls and Chips Ahoy. But other than that, you could probably skip this record. I'm giving this a 59 out of 100 and no ribbons. It's not all bad, but yeah, you don't need to spend your time listening to this album. The Evil Dead. Barring some exceptional cinematography, lighting, and moments of tension, this film is an overly ambitious, goofy, freaky mess. I think the acting is often points lazy and awkward. I think the fight scenes are very Muppet-like. I also think the writing is largely lazy, because I don't think people really talk like that, but it sort of adds to this campiness element of the film. So I don't think it's all bad. Some scenes have really cool ideas, such as the deck bench, and to avoid spoilers, when the true form comes out towards the end of the movie. I really want to specifically emphasize how the lighting and cinematography are really exciting and really jump out at you while you're watching this. It's so dramatic and it's so up close and personal and so in your face. And that part, I think, is the strongest part of the movie. And the soundtrack is quite good. In general, you might enjoy it. So it's a 66 out of 100 and a bronze ribbon. There are moments that I really enjoyed. Tangle Tower. Colorful and fully alive, solving a mystery has never felt so charming. From the writing, voice acting, soundtrack, to the sublime design, animation, and a satisfying open book approach to its puzzles, the game fulfills its vision exceptionally well, and really puts you in the role of a detective, entering other people's lives and discovering just enough clues to solve a crime, but not enough to do more than glimpse at their deeper, unsolvable existences. I really enjoy this. This is really short. You can pump this out in a single evening if you really wanted to. And I think, I don't know if I've ever seen a 2D game with better character-oriented writing, dialogue, and animations. All the characters really pop out, and you just immediately click that they're absolutely real, even though they're quite goofy and eccentric, to say the least. The only gripes I think I have with the game is just that the oh Jesus, there was a bird that just jumped out. Holy fuck, I was afraid that the bird is dying. Oh my god. Okay, the bird is okay, I assure you. Jesus. Sorry, when I'm stressed, I turn into another ethnicity, sorry. I think the only gripe I have with the game is just that its puzzles often seem a bit too simple. If there was more deduction from me personally involved, rather than just following the set narrative, it would have felt a lot more personal and a lot more memorable gameplay wise. But character and story writing wise, this is really memorable and really sweet and really good. So I'm giving this an 86 out of 100 and a silver ribbon. I recommended this to a friend of mine, but also I really personally enjoyed this. If you have a night or 2 nights to spend playing a charming game, this is my game of choice. True Lies. A really good comedy and an absurdly bad action flick, the movie shines when dealing with ridiculous domestic issues or anytime Jamie Lee Curtis is on screen, but is unbearably over the top and quite facetious when it comes to international matters, even for the 90s. To clarify, when I say domestic matters, I do mean household domestic matters. I did like the domestic international contrast I did in the review. It's goofy. The ending is one of the worst endings I've ever seen in any action flick, but the beginning and the first half of it are really funny, and Jamie Lee Curtis is hilarious, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is also really hilarious. If you want, you can watch until the erotic scene, and then once that scene is done, I give you permission to turn off the film and go do something else. Anything that happens after that is not worth your time at all. Unless you're doing a drinking game with your pals, and whenever somebody on the screen does something ridiculous and f***ing stupid, and you're all just like, what the fuck? Then you can drink and watch this film. But other than that, you don't need to. You don't. I'm giving this a 64 out of 100, and I don't think I'm giving this a ribbon. The Cure, Disintegration. Floating in a dark, foamy void, Disintegration gives you comfort in the crushing feeling of being alone. Utilizing corny 80s production to the fullest, it elevates this post-punking gothic rock album to glimmering new heights, and even setting the precedent for early industrial rock riffs, while lyrically articulating new meanings into emptiness, sadness, and tragic yearning. This was really tragic in a good way. It doesn't put you into this tragic sense. It points out all of these feelings in you and gives you a sense of comfort that it is okay to feel that way. It's a very cathartic record. It puts you in a character that's in a trench coat, walking in the rain, forfeiting for a little bit all of the emotional wars happening in your life. And it's really sweet. I will be probably coming back to this. I'm giving this a 92 out of 100 and a gold ribbon. Nowhere Forever. A fevery, bubbly, idiosyncratic mix of synth-funk and new jazz with touches of orchestral that make it feel both grand and powerful and self-contained and gentle. It's like stepping into a really eccentric pocket dimension. While the general songwriting and production aren't novel, it's still a really tight, fun, and charming release. The lyrics are also super weird and cool as f***, and the album's flow is immaculate. The only note I have is it's like Quiero Quiero Bonito, but it's jazz. And I think that's quite correct. I'm giving this an 82 out of 100 and a silver ribbon. This is really fun, and Nowhere's lyrics are, as always, very unique and eclectic. Kendrick Lamar, To Pimp a Butterfly. An interwoven narrative that encapsulates and reveals insidious ideas of social hierarchies, classist discrimination, and personal accountability. It draws from the African American perspective and effortlessly expands it to something heterogeneically true. From a cultural and lyrical behemoth and his equally titanic hand-selected features, T-Pap creates musical landscapes that transcend the jazz rap status quo and seismically elevate musical, technical, lyrical, and cultural artistry. It absolutely deserves every single bit of praise it gets. There is a very good reason that this is the best rated album on Rate Your Music and one of the culturally most highly regarded albums in history. I have it on my shelf, and there's a good reason why I have it on my shelf. This is as perfect of an album as I can imagine, even though it might not be my absolute favorite album. It is very close. This is 100 out of 100 and a polychromatic ribbon. If there are 2 albums that you ever listen to in your entire life, T-Pap should be one of them. And I really hope you see why. Neutral Milk Hotel in the Aeroplane over the sea. Guttural confessions and passions spring forth from death, desperation, and warm-blooded love in complete and utter rawness on Neutral Milk Hotel's evergreen masterpiece. It's really challenging to talk about this record in any comprehensible manner because it's so multifaceted, not just in its thematic and lyrical genius, but just in its genreless nature of how it manages to be both folk and also punk and also rough in a sense of it has the similar impact of metal songs at some points, and also really beautiful, gut-wrenching ballads. If there are 5 albums you should listen to in your life, Neutral Milk Hotels in the Aeroplane over the Sea should be one of them. This is 99 out of 100 and a gold ribbon. Revirgin, Moderna, Rješenja. There's some new heads talking in this offbeat new wave revivalist album, and they understood the rhythmically tight, structurally playful, and lyrically esoteric assignment. This is a Croatian take on the new wave genre pioneered by Talking Heads. This definitely takes a lot of inspiration from Remain in Light and other such albums, but it adds enough new lyrical playfulness and rhythmic and melodic excitement that it didn't feel as blatantly derivative as it might be given an album tackling this genre and style. All around, it's very solid, it's very groovy, and I'm giving this a 79 out of 100 and a silver ribbon. XOK, Celeste. 100% completion. I previously covered Celeste on its own, but I have since beat this game to 100%, and it took me a long ass f***ing time. So 100% entails all strawberries, all chapters of course, all B-sides of chapters, all C-sides of chapters, farewell, and the moonberry in farewell. The 100% for all of you does not include golden strawberries. That would be unfair. It's very, very, very challenging. But if you have developed a keen love, understanding, and appreciation for and of Celeste, that you embark on this challenge, because challenging yourself and getting to the point where you really enjoy challenging things and persevering through them. Once you reach that point, there's a certain level of unstoppableness that you'll gain. It's really rewarding. The grueling and discipline-demanding extras required my all, but rewarded me with equally significant lessons in approaching adversity both practically and mentally in a safe and controlled environment, and with a systematic mastery over a one-of-a-kind mechanical masterpiece. I would rate this almost as highly as the base game of Celeste itself, which was perfect. I give it a polychromatic ribbon and 100 out of 100. This is 99 out of 100. The only gripe I have is how Chapter 8 sits with me, but it is not enough to take it down significantly in any way. Farewell was my favorite chapter in the entire game, especially the first 2-3 sub-chapters in it. Chapter 7C did actually make me cry, but it didn't make me cry because of itself. It made me cry because it pointed out all the insecurities that I have with facing difficult challenges in my life. And once I accepted those insecurities and cried, I managed to beat it. It's very unusual for a game that talks about these themes and this process of understanding and acceptance to actually pull you through it mentally, emotionally, to such a precise and exact degree as to what it was saying, that it's just, there's nothing like Celeste. There's nothing like Celeste. Poor Things. Impeccable, boundary-pushing surrealist design on all fronts, which includes graphics, set, costume, production style, everything. Mastery over composition and color. Wondrous and ponderous dialogue and character development. Globally compelling, but periodically unsubtle and preachy narrative that slightly affects otherwise exquisite performances. This was unique, challenging to watch at some points, and it did make the guy behind me in the theater stand up after the movie was done and was like, never again am I watching this. Never again am I going to the cinema. This is never again. If you're not that guy, and you should strive to not be that guy, you will enjoy this and find something of value in this and its audacity to portray such themes and stories. So I'm giving this a 91 out of 100 and a gold ribbon. I really enjoyed this. Oppenheimer. The intimacy of the camera, the rapidity of the editing, The subtlety of the performances, the density of the narrative, and the intensity of visual and auditive effects all build towards several overwhelming climaxes that portray the atomic bomb as a divine curse born of unimaginable brilliance and seemingly inescapable destiny, and its aftermath as an insidious, humanly inhumane cataclysm. Both times that I've seen this film, it left me speechless, breathless, and overwhelmed with emotion. I remember walking out of the cinema and just not being able to speak for several minutes. If you can, I would recommend watching this on the big screen. This is, I think, my favorite movie of 2023 I've seen so far. So I'm giving this a 96 out of 100 and a gold ribbon. Yeah. Godzilla Minus One. The monstrosity of Minus One isn't in the giant mutated reptilian creature, but in the very human lingerings of guilt, regret, and duty. Its absolutely perfect pacing and immaculate use of production resources create a deeply immersive and ferociously crafted film. I was incredibly surprised, as are probably most people who see Godzilla Minus One. I think one of the first non-Godzilla movies. Its emotional writing and structure really struck a deep chord with me, and I think most of the other people who were in the cinema with me when I watched it. There was a dad who brought, I don't know why he brought his child of like 6 or 7 years to watch this film, and a couple, both of whom were crying by the end. I could also hear whimpers from the seats behind me. It is still a Godzilla film, and so there will be destruction, but also prepare yourself that this might be not what you expect out of a Godzilla film, but that you will walk away feeling fulfilled and like you've watched something really special. I'm giving this a 91 out of 100 and a gold ribbon. And also, the very last scene is a bit weird. I pretend that it doesn't exist. And that's it for January. Thank you for sticking out to the end. Thank you for being here. I hope to see you next time. Do all the little clickies of all the little buttons that I have below me. Do let me know of what you thought of all these things that I reviewed. You can check out some of my other videos that I did of previous months. But without further ado, see you next time. I really want to start doing the Jake Roper outro of, oh no, it's never goodbye. It's always, and then he points, and then it's see you later. See you later, guys. Love you, bye.